Let me tell you something I've learned, something life taught me. Not in a classroom, not from a book, but from experience, from walking through fire and coming out forged. You want to know why you should never argue? Because arguing wastes your energy. And energy, my friend, is your most precious currency. You spend it every day. Where you spend it determines what kind of life you live. See, when you argue, you're investing your energy into chaos, into noise, into trying to prove to someone something that deep down, they might not even be ready to hear. And in the meantime, while you're yelling, defending, breaking down point after point, life is still moving. Your purpose is still waiting. Your dream, your vision, your calling, they don't pause while you argue. They drift further away while you're caught up in proving your point. I've been in rooms where people would rather be right than be at peace. They'll throw away relationships, friendships, opportunities just to say, I told you so. But what did you really win? What did you gain? Let me ask you something. Has anyone ever truly won an argument? Maybe they silenced the other person. Maybe they embarrassed them. But did they walk away better? Did they walk away more fulfilled, more clear, more aligned with their path? I doubt it. Because argument is not about growth. It's about ego. And when you lead with ego, you lose your direction. Every single time. See, I believe God, the universe, whatever you call it, gives each of us a lane, a direction, a purpose. And when you argue, you step out of your lane. You start looking at what they're doing, how they see things, what they believe. And now you're off track. You're reacting to their words instead of listening to your own soul. And the more you argue, the more disconnected you become from the power that's in you. That power, that's your gift. And gifts don't grow in conflict. They grow in clarity. Some of the most powerful moments in my life came not when I spoke, but when I chose not to. When I looked someone in the eye, heard their words, and said, all right. Not because I agreed, not because I was weak, but because I knew my purpose didn't need defending. I didn't need to explain what I knew to someone who wasn't ready to receive it. Because see, wisdom doesn't scream. It whispers, and if you can't hear it in silence, you'll never understand it in noise. Let them think what they want. Let them say what they will. You don't need to argue to prove your truth. Your life proves it. Your actions prove it. Your discipline, your consistency, your focus, that's where the real proof lives. That's where the power is. We live in a world where everybody's talking. Social media, debates, comments, arguments. People spending hours crafting replies to people they've never even met. And all that time, all that energy, gone. You could have built something. You could have learned something. You could have become something. But instead, you got caught in the trap of arguing. And a trap is exactly what it is. Because once you're in it, you lose sight of what matters most. Your peace, your progress, your purpose. So the next time someone comes at you with heat, trying to stir you up, trying to bait you into defending yourself, breathe, step back, remember who you are. You're not here to win arguments. You're here to win your life. You're here to build something eternal. Evers to build something eternal. You're here to move forward with grace, with strength, with direction. Don't let petty words pull you off a divine path. You don't argue when you know who you are. You walk, you move, you rise, and you let your silence speak louder than any shout ever could. Because the man who walks in purpose doesn't have time to prove anything to people stuck in their pride. You cannot change a closed mind with loud words. That's a truth you have to learn early if you want peace in your life. See, some people don't want to understand you. They don't want clarity. They don't want truth. They want to win. They want to fight. They want to pull you into a tug of war where they've already decided you're wrong before you even open your mouth. And when someone has already made up their mind, when their heart is locked and their ears are closed, no amount of explanation, no volume, no logic is going to move them. Because they're not listening to understand. They're listening to respond. And sometimes they're not even doing that. They're just waiting for their turn to talk again. I've been there. We've all been there. You're passionate, you care, you want to make things clear. You think, if I just say it the right way, they'll get it. If I just explain it one more time, they'll see my side. But the truth is, a closed mind is like a locked door. You can knock all you want, yell all you want, but if they don't want to open it, they won't. And while you're standing there trying to break it down with your words, you're wasting your time, wasting your spirit, giving pieces of yourself to someone who isn't even open to receiving it. And here's the kicker. Sometimes it's not even about what you're saying. Sometimes it's who you are. See, people filter the truth through their own fears, their own pain, their own ego. So you could be telling them something powerful, something that could change their life, and they'll still reject it because it didn't come from someone they respect or because it challenges their comfort zone. Some folks would rather cling to a lie they're comfortable with than face a truth that stretches them. That's human nature, and you can't fight that with volume. You ever watch a wise man deal with ignorance? He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't argue. He doesn't wrestle with it. He observes. He lets the fool speak. And then, with calm clarity, he walks away. Because he knows that truth doesn't need to scream. Truth just is. And when a person is ready, when their mind is open and their heart is soft, they'll hear it even if it's whispered. You have to know when to let go. You have to know when to say, this isn't worth my peace. Some battles are not meant to be fought, they're meant to be walked away from. Not because you're scared, not because you don't know what to say, but because you do know what matters, and arguing with a closed mind doesn't move the conversation forward. It just drags you backward. Protect your energy. Don't spill your spirit into places that won't honor it. Don't chase understanding from people who have no interest in giving it. It's not your job to force someone to see the truth. It's your job to live it. Walk in it, show it by example, and in time either they'll come around or they won't. But either way, you'll be at peace because you didn't let your soul get tangled up in a war of words that could never be won. Because when the mind is closed, no argument can open it. Only time, experience, and sometimes pain can do that. And until then, the wisest thing you can do is stay silent and keep walking. Silence holds more power than shouting ever will. That's not just a poetic statement, that's a law of life. When you walk into a room, the loudest person isn't always the strongest. Sometimes, the one who says nothing commands the most respect, because silence isn't weakness. Silence is discipline. It's control. It's the ability to hold your fire when everything inside you wants to erupt. And that kind of power, that kind of restraint, that's rare, that's real strength. See, anybody can shout. Anybody can lose their temper, raise their voice, slam a door, type out a comment in all caps. That doesn't take courage. That takes impulse. But to sit still, to breathe, to listen and not let your emotions run the show, that takes maturity. That takes focus. You want to be different? Learn to master silence. Because silence gives you something that arguing never will. It gives you clarity. It gives you the space to think, to observe, to understand the situation without the cloud of anger blinding your judgment. I've been in rooms full of noise, everybody trying to talk over each other, prove a point, defend their pride. But when the room goes quiet, something shifts. People lean in. They start to pay attention. Why? Because silence draws power to it. It invites reflection. It causes people to wonder what you're thinking, what you know, what you're holding back. And sometimes that silence says more than 1,000 words ever could. It's not about being passive. It's about choosing not to waste your voice where it won't make a difference. There are moments in life when people will provoke you. They'll throw words at you like weapons, hoping you'll fire back. And when you don't, when you hold your peace, it disarms them. Not because they won, but because you didn't step into their chaos. Silence takes away their power. You didn't match their energy, you kept yours. And that quiet dignity, that throws people off more than shouting ever could. And don't mistake silence for surrender. No, sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes it's patience. Sometimes you're just waiting, watching, preparing your next move. Because when you speak from a calm place, your words hit different. They cut deeper, they carry weight. But when you shout, when you argue, when you get loud, people stop hearing you. All they hear is the emotion. They don't hear the message. And if your voice doesn't bring peace, doesn't bring clarity, then it's just more noise in a world that's already full of it. Silence also gives you something else. Peace. Internal peace. Because you weren't pulled into a battle you didn't need to fight. You didn't let someone else's energy disturb your own. That's power. That's real control. That's knowing who you are and not needing to prove it with words. There's wisdom in silence. There's dignity in silence. And above all, there's strength in silence. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the one making the impact. Sometimes, it's the one who chooses not to speak, because they understand that power doesn't come from being heard. It comes from being felt. And silence, when used with purpose, is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever own. Because when you learn to sit in silence, you realize you don't need to raise your voice, you just need to raise your standards. The truth doesn't need to be shouted to be real. It doesn't need a microphone or a debate stage. It doesn't need applause or validation. Truth just is. It stands solid and steady, whether people accept it or not, whether they agree or not, whether they try to twist it, cover it, deny it. It remains. It remains. And that's the beauty of truth. It doesn't change because someone argues against it. It doesn't crumble under criticism. It stays firm even in silence. That's why arguing about it is often pointless. Because truth doesn't need your defense, it needs your example. You don't prove truth through noise. You prove it through action. Through how you carry yourself, how you live, how you respond when people try to shake you. Truth is a lifestyle, not a lecture. You want people to understand what's real? Show them. Don't waste time trying to beat it into their minds with words. Live in such a way that your life reflects it. Because actions will always speak louder. Your consistency, your discipline, your peace. That's how you let the truth speak for itself. Look around. The world is loud. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants the last word. But very few people are quiet enough to let the truth do the talking. When you argue, when you go back and forth just to prove your point, what you're really doing is trying to convince someone who probably isn't ready to receive it. And while you're pouring your energy into that, the truth, your truth is still sitting there waiting to be lived. You don't have to convince people, you just have to be. Some of the strongest people I've ever seen were quiet. Calm. Not because they didn't know the truth, but because they didn't feel the need to convince everyone around them. They let time do the talking. They let results show the truth. And over time, the same people who doubted them came back. Not because of the arguments they won, but because of the life they built in silence. Because truth will always rise. It doesn't need help. It just needs time. And here's something else. When you argue, you give the other person power. You give them space in your mind, your heart, your emotions. You let their resistance pull you off balance. But when you hold the truth inside and walk in it without needing applause or agreement, you remain in control. That's where your power is. Not in how loud you can get, but in how rooted you can be. How calm you can stay. How clear you can remain, even when they don't see what you see. So instead of shouting your truth, live it. Instead of arguing about it, embody it. Let your patience be proof. Let your peace be your protest. Let your growth be your answer. That's how you shift minds. That's how you influence hearts. Not with fire and noise, but with quiet, unshakable truth. Because at the end of the day, truth doesn't need a debate. It needs a demonstration. Time is the greatest revealer of all things. You don't have to argue with someone who doubts you, disrespects you, or misunderstands your journey. Because time will speak for you in ways your words never could. See, when you're caught up in an argument, trying to make someone see your point, trying to force understanding, you're stepping into a trap. You're letting someone else control the pace of your spirit. But if you step back, stay grounded, and stay consistent, time will show what needs to be shown. The truth always rises, and what's real doesn't stay hidden forever. People can lie, they can twist stories, they can paint you as something you're not. But time doesn't lie. Time strips away the performance. It reveals intentions. It unmasks pretenders. It shows who is real and who is faking. And that's why you don't need to argue. Because when you're right, when you're walking with integrity, time will eventually shine a light on that. And if someone is wrong about you, let them be wrong. That's not your burden to carry. That's not your fight to waste energy on. You've got to be patient. Growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the dark, in the quiet. While everyone else is making noise, you're evolving. While others are pointing fingers, you're building something solid. And when the time comes, when the dust settles, what you built will still be standing. And that's the most powerful argument of all. Results. Not opinions. Not emotions. Results. You can't argue with fruit. You can't debate a harvest. Either it's there or it's not. So when someone doubts you or challenges you just to get a reaction, don't give them what they want. Give them silence. Give them consistency. Let them watch as time proves what you've been trying to explain. That's the art of patience. That's the strength of someone who knows who they are. You don't need quick validation. You don't need immediate approval. You trust the process. You trust that your truth, your purpose, your path will all make sense in time. There's a peace that comes when you no longer feel the urge to explain yourself, when you no longer need to convince anyone. That peace is a sign of maturity. It's a sign you've chosen growth over ego. Arguments feed the ego. Silence feeds the soul. And when you realize that time is on your side, you stop rushing to prove things. You just keep building, keep showing up, keep doing the work. Because in the end, the people who doubted you, they'll see. And the ones who believed in you, they never needed proof anyway. Think about the people who made the biggest impact in your life. It wasn't their loud opinions that moved you. It was how they lived, how they endured, how they stayed faithful to their truth even when no one clapped for them. That's what sticks. That's what lasts. Because when time lifts the curtain, the truth is all that will remain. So don't argue, don't beg for understanding. Just keep going, keep doing the work, keep walking with character. Let the days, the months, the years reveal who you really are. Because in the end, time never fails to tell the whole story. Peace is priceless. You realize that the older you get, the more you've been through, the more you've lost sleep over things that didn't matter, and the more you've argued with people who never really wanted to understand you in the first place. At some point, you stop valuing being right and start valuing being at peace. Because there's no trophy for winning an argument that cost you your mental health. There's no reward for shouting louder than someone who wasn't even listening. And when you come to truly value your peace, you become very careful with who you give your energy to. Every argument takes something from you. It steals your time, your emotions, your focus. And often you walk away from it more frustrated than before. You ever notice that? You say what you needed to say, you make your point, and yet something still feels unsettled. That's because peace doesn't live in arguments. Peace lives in clarity, in stillness, in choosing not to get dragged into chaos just because someone else is living in it. It's not that you're avoiding confrontation. It's that you're protecting your spirit. Not everyone deserves your response. Not every comment needs a clapback. Some people throw negativity your way, hoping to provoke you, hoping to see you react. Don't give them that satisfaction. Don't hand over your peace to someone who doesn't even know what to do with their own. Because when you argue, when you shout, when you let someone else's chaos dictate your state, you give them power. You allow their confusion to become your confusion. And that's a price too high to pay. True peace comes when you no longer feel the need to fight battles that don't build you, When you realize that silence in the right moment is stronger than any clever comeback. When you learn to walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know your peace is worth more than being proven right. That's real strength. That's real control. And it doesn't come easy. It's a choice. A daily intentional choice to not engage with things that pull you off your path. You don't have to defend everything. You don't have to respond to every false word spoken about you. Time will sort that out. Truth will surface. But your peace, that's something you have to guard. Like a treasure, like something sacred. Because when your mind is calm, when your soul is at rest, you make better decisions. You walk clearer, you hear God clearer. But when you're constantly arguing, constantly agitated, your spirit gets noisy. And in that noise, you lose direction. It takes discipline to stay calm in a world that's constantly trying to rile you up. It takes focus to keep your eyes on the bigger picture when someone is trying to bait you into a small-minded conversation. But that's the price of peace. And it's always worth paying, because peace allows you to grow. Peace allows you to heal. Peace allows you to move forward when arguments just hold you in place. And forward is where you're meant to go. So let them talk, let them misunderstand you, let them gossip. You don't have to fix every lie or prove every truth. You've got bigger things to build, greater things to pursue, and none of that can grow in the soil of constant conflict. Protect your peace like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does.